Hello.
Hello, hello, hello. Hey everyone, as you're popping in, if you want to put your email and where you ski most, what your home mountain is in the chat, that would be awesome, and we can kind of see where everybody is coming from. And if you put your email into the chat, we can send you a Coalition Snow gift card and also something special from TREW. Every time I do this, I have to find the chat. There's the chat. Great. Hey, Erin.
Hey,
You made it.
sorry about that.
No, don't worry about it. It's all good. We were just saying how that always happens with Zoom, always right before a call or meeting, it likes to update. So it's great. We love it.
Perfect.
Yeah. So anyone who didn't hear that, or maybe I was admitting you into, I'll wait for a few more just so that that doesn't happen again. But you can see in the chat, some people are putting their email and where their home mountain is. Email is so that we can get you a gift card and something special from TREW. And then also just we can see where everybody's at. The real Jen Gurecki. I'm the fake Jen Gurecki for anyone who doesn't know. I'm Jen Gurecki by night during Backcountry Beta, but I am Evan, despite what it says right here. And I am the Coalition Clubhouse headmistress. Yes, Jen, very naughty. All right, cool. Well, there's been a little bit of pause in the people coming in, so I'll admit people as they come, but my name is Evan. I am the Coalition Clubhouse headmistress, so you might see emails, notifications, etc. That's me. And I'm really excited about this Backcountry Beta event with Erin and with TREW and with VNTR Birds. It's going to be really great. I can't learn enough about route finding and terrain choice, and I feel like that is always a great thing to brush up on. So yes, put your email, your home mountain in the chat. That way we can get you a gift card. And I'm going to give it over to Jess, and then we'll give it over to Erin, and we'll dig in. And I'm so happy everybody's here. Thanks for spending your Wednesday evening with us.
Thanks, Evan. I'm Jess from TREW Gear, and we've been a partner on this Backcountry Beta Series, I think, for 3 years or 4 years. I forget how many years, but one of those. And it's an amazing series. We love Coalition Snow and just what this community is all about. If you're not familiar with TREW, we're a small outerwear company based in Portland, Oregon. We make bibs and jackets for skiing and riding, and probably our claim to fame is our chariot bib for women, which has a drop seat on the back that you can unzip for backcountry friendly bathroom breaks. And we'll be sending out a discount code to everyone who registered for this event tonight. So thank you. You can check them out. Thanks to Evan and thanks to Erin. Excited to learn from you. And even though we're like pretty snowless here in Oregon, excited to, just keep getting the juices flowing and get more stoked for the season.
Yay. Thanks, Jess. All right, Erin, you ready?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. How about it? And I'll monitor the chat in case anyone has like questions that pop up, but and as people keep coming in, but it's all you, Erin.
That sounds great. Let me get what I want to be sharing pulled up, I guess.
Also, Erin, where are you based out of, and kind of what's your relationship with Venture Birds and skiing before
Yeah,
we get too much
definitely.
into it?
I live in Pueblo, Colorado, so kind of southern Front Range, Colorado. I mostly ski kind of in the Monarch Mountain area, as well as kind of some of northern New Mexico, and sometimes I get up further north in the Front Range, but yeah, that's where you can usually find me in the winter. And last winter, so for the 2022-23 season, I was the mentorship scholarship recipient from Venture Birds. So I got to shadow them all season, which was really phenomenal. And I learned a ton. And yeah, the women who are with Venture Birds really just have a wealth of knowledge that is really great to learn from. So yeah, I am here representing them tonight, and yeah, I will get sharing my screen here so I can share more of that with you. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. I am Erin Hennessy, and yeah, Venture Birds is a women-run adventure company based in the heart of Rocky Mountains, specializing in women-focused outdoor education and experiences. They bring women identifying and non-binary riders who are comfortable in femme-centered spaces together to build confidence and self-reliance in the outdoors through mountain biking, backcountry skiing, splitboarding, and community meetups. Venture Birds focuses on holistic learning that's led by women and for women, and that encourages their own identities as outdoor athletes in a way that's inclusive and fun. They provide safer places for learning, mentorship for long-term growth, and forums for community and connection with the goal of seeing more women of all demographics on mountain bikes, flipboards, and skis. So you can see the link to their website there. If you're interested at all, this winter they have a whole host of backcountry courses from your area level 1, level 2, and rescue courses to backcountry basics. They have all kinds of community meetups that are all throughout Colorado this winter. They have some really cool locations that they teach out of, so definitely go check that out. And if you're a mountain biker, also they do things all year round in the summer as well. So yeah, Venture Birds is really great organization to kind of further your learning this winter. Um, but getting into finding a route and choosing terrain, which is what I'll be talking about tonight, I figured I'd start off with why do we need to actively select terrain and plan our routes in the backcountry? And this is kind of an important question of why we don't just, pick a trailhead and follow the trail and get going when we go out into the backcountry in the winter. And this has to do with a few things. First off, we're going out into remote areas and really need to be familiar with the terrain that we're thinking about traveling in. There's the risk of avalanches. And ultimately, within kind of the recipe for avalanches that I have in that triangle, terrain is the one thing that we can control. It's the thing that we can pick where we go in the terrain. But we need avalanche terrain, unstable snow, and a trigger to cause an avalanche. And really, we can't control the unstable snow. We can't control how the snowpack stacks up. We can't go out there and make it more stable. That would be great. And we can't control triggering an avalanche either because as backcountry travelers, we're all kind of inherently triggers. Our weight on that unstable snowpack can cause an avalanche. So the thing that we can't control is the terrain that we're choosing to go in for the day. So throughout this talk this evening, I'm kind of going to go through how I first check the forecast to look at where that unstable snow is, and then start to think about planning my route on a Caltopo map and how I am going to interact with the terrain that I've decided that I'm going to go into. So yeah, throughout this talk tonight, I'm kind of hoping that it can be an active demonstration that you can follow along with to check the forecast, as well as kind of play around in Caltopo then with some of the different layers that are really useful for when you are planning your routes. And this is definitely a little bit kind of more on the introductory level of route planning, but hopefully there's something that everyone can take away in terms of all the tips and tricks of getting into Caltopo and different layers and tools that you can use. So yeah, feel free to ask questions or raise hands throughout, or I can get to questions at the end as well.
Erin, I'll monitor the chat. So if anyone does put a question in that is like pertaining to something you're talking about, I'll hop in and let you know.
Perfect. That sounds great. Thanks, Evan. So the first thing we got to do to kind of get at that recipe of an avalanche is checking the forecast to understand where that unstable snow is going to be in the terrain, which is why we're going to check the forecast first. It's really important to understand what terrain features that unstable snow is laying on, and where we're going to find our different avalanche problems, and kind of what is the most relevant for the day that we're going out. So throughout this talk, I'm kind of going to be talking about tomorrow, as if us as a group are planning to go out into the backcountry tomorrow. Obviously, don't just take this plan and run with it for tomorrow. You would have to discuss with your own group and make sure that everybody's on the same page. But that's kind of what I'll be talking about. So that's why we would check the forecast. In terms of who should check the forecast, every person in your group should check the forecast. I don't want to be the only person in my group who's read the forecast and have to fill everybody else in and hope that I got all of the points that the forecasters were talking about. And I also don't want to be relying on somebody else in my group to have really read through it carefully or the same way that I would have. So it's really important for everybody in your group to take a look at the forecast and read through it. When should you check the forecast? Honestly, you should check it kind of as frequently as you can as soon as the snow starts flying. And this helps you to kind of build a mental picture of how the snow is stacking up in the areas that you're interested in for the season. And this is really useful to kind of give you some more context, as well as just understanding what's going on out there. But realistically, you should definitely check it the day or like night before you're going to go out into the backcountry. So that's why I mentioned tomorrow. We would check the forecast tonight if we're planning on going out for tomorrow. But that also kind of depends on when your avalanche forecast comes out. So I'll be kind of planning a route for us here in Colorado. And I know that the Colorado Avalanche Center releases their forecast at 4:30 p.m. the evening before, but some areas might release it in the morning or later in the evening. So just know that you need to kind of also be aware of when they're publishing the forecast for you. Where do you find the forecast? Where the heck is this forecast that I'm talking about? The forecast, the easiest way to find any zone in the United States is to go to avalanche.org. And from there, you can click on any of the forecast zones in the United States, and it will take you to the local forecast zone, to their website for where you're interested in going. And the same thing, if you're in Canada, you can go to avalanche.ca. So there's that link there for you, to get to any forecast centers, forecast zone in the United States. And then how do you check the forecast? For doing this, I kind of like to start with kind of the bigger picture parts of the forecast and then go to the more specifics that the forecasters write about on the web pages. But basically, I like to start with the danger rating and the bottom line, which really give you a broad overview of what's going on and give you kind of like the most important highlights in the forecast. And then from there, I like to read on and look at what the specific avalanche problems are, kind of read the avalanche or the forecast discussion, as well as look for any observations or weather forecasts that the forecast center might have for us as well. So this is definitely something that takes practice to get good at reading the forecast. And it's something that you can definitely seek out further education through. An Area 1 course is a really great way. And obviously ARI provides courses all over the United States. We would love to see you at a Venture Birds course if you're in Colorado. And then there's also some online resources like Know Before You Go has some really great online modules for this sort of thing. And there's also learning resources on your Avalanche Center's website that will help you kind of figure out how to use their website and things like that as well. So, kind of for the first part of this demo, we're going to take a look at what the forecast is for tomorrow. So, since we're going to be looking at a spot in Colorado, we can go to Colorado's Avalanche Information Center. So the website is listed right there, or Googling CAIC or the Colorado Avalanche Information Center should get you there fairly quickly. And then like you see here, once you get there, we'll type Berthoud Pass into the search bar. So I am going to pull that up.
I'm going to put the link in the chat if anyone is like following along and wants to click along. So I'm going to put the CAIC link in the chat.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Evan. Give you all just a second in case anybody's following along as well. And then, yeah, nice feature of Colorado's webpage is that you can type in where you're going to make sure you're picking the right place, which is how I like to do it. So we'll be looking at Berthoud Pass, which is pretty popular zone in the Front Range. Go ahead and click on it, and it's going to take us right there. As soon as we do that, you can see that it kind of dropped a pin for us. But like I was talking about, we can see that right here at the top, this forecast was published this evening, but it's for tomorrow, which it shows kind of up here. And we can see the danger rating kind of right off the bat pops out, which is the different color coding that we have, that you can learn kind of more about what that danger rating means from some of that further education that I talked about, since I won't be focusing too much on reading the forecast itself in this talk tonight, so that we have time to get to some of the mapping. But yeah, we can see the danger rating off the top with considerable avalanche hazard near and above tree line, and then moderate below tree line. And then this blurb right here is kind of our bottom line, which is like the key. Yeah.
Erin, it's still on the just check the avalanche forecast page.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So it's on like slide 10 right now.
Let me stop sharing and start again.
No worries.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me know.
Oh, Zoom. That was Jocelyn told us that, because I did not see that at first. So thank you.
All right. Are we seeing the web page now?
Okay. Yes. Now we're yes. We see the
Okay.
Yep, we see your mouse. So yes, Berthoud Pass, you're typing it in. Perfect.
Cool. All right. Now we're all on the same page. But yeah, so the colors kind of give us our different danger ratings, like I was saying. And then down here, we have our bottom line, which gives us kind of the key takeaway of the forecast for the day. So it says avalanche conditions are dangerous. You can trigger a slide anywhere you find a thick slab of recent snow resting on old weak snow near the ground. Northerly and easterly facing slopes are the most dangerous, and you're the most likely to trigger an avalanche large enough to bury you on these slopes. You can even trigger avalanches from a distance or from the bottom of a slope. Shooting cracks and audible collapses are indications of dangerous snow conditions. Look for slopes less than about 30 degrees without steep slopes above for safer travel. So that really gives us the quick and dirty rundown of what is going on out there, what kind of terrain we should be avoiding. It has a lot of language around that. So yeah, I guess at this point, if folks want to go ahead and throw in the chat like some key words about the terrain that are in this forecast. Yeah, I see someone said slab. So yeah, we have a slab problem that's out there. Any other key kind of terrain words? Yeah, northerly and easterly. Yeah, those are really good ones to know. Those are our aspects that we're watching out for. Yeah, great. Yeah, shooting cracks is another observation that we can make in the field. Yeah, weak snow. Perfect. Yeah, some of the other tree line, yeah, that's a really good one. Really good to know, which we see broken down even in our danger rating here. Another one we see them point to is that this 30 degrees is kind of talking about the terrain, how steep of terrain we should be in. But yeah, we can see even the forecast is kind of directing us towards our route finding and terrain selection for the day. And as we scroll down in the forecast, we can see, avalanche problem one is a persistent slab. And then we even have this nice compass rose, which really highlights where in the terrain this problem exists. So each ring on the compass rose is for below tree line, near tree line, and above tree line. So it's kind of like imagining a little mountain in your mind's eye with the point of it is the top. And then we have each of the different aspects going around the side. So that's really useful for kind of planning our terrain selection as well. And then if we come down to the media gallery, this is really great because it walks us through observations that people have taken recently. So this one, we can see an avalanche was triggered on the 4th, and this is at Berthoud Pass, which is really great to know, since that's where we're thinking about planning our route. And it also says that it is on northerly and easterly aspects. So flipping through these can be really helpful for kind of giving you a picture in your mind of what it might look like out there. So yeah, that's kind of the first tab of our forecast. The next one is the forecast discussion, which goes more in depth and gives more context about kind of the weather that we've had in the last few days and how that's influenced the conditions. I'm not going to read through all of this just for the sake of time for this little workshop, but usually when I'm planning my day and reading the forecast, I read through all of this. And I find it really useful to kind of build a little picture in my mind. And the same thing with the weather forecast is really nice to take a look at. Here, the NWS is the National Weather Service forecast for this location, and then we can look at the Avalanche Center's forecast for this location also, which is really nice. So, I'm gonna try to flip back to the slides. Let me see if I can do that. All right. Do we see the slides again?
It might be easier to stop sharing and then
Okay.
reshare because it might just be like sort of
Kind of
glitching out on you.
lagging. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Perfect.
So now that I've taken a look at the forecast for the day, the next thing that I kind of like to do is like set my mindset for what are my goals? What do I want to accomplish when I go out into the backcountry? Am I having more of a play it safe mentality, or am I gonna like step out and maybe look at some bigger terrain or a new area or go out with a new group? Are all kind of different aspects of stepping out. So these are kind of some different goals that I could potentially have. But usually I kind of like to read the forecast and then refine what my goals might be for the day. So having taken a look at the forecast, go ahead and throw in the chat what you might think you would go to your group with as your goal for the day. Are you going to investigate a new area? Maybe stick to some more sheltered terrain? Just plan on digging a snow pit, see what the conditions are like, or maybe try to get out onto bigger terrain. What do you think your mindset would be after kind of taking a look at that? Low angle fun, I really like that one. I have no problem with low angle turns.
Same. They're the best. It's fun.
Yeah.
You're not puckering. It's great.
Yeah, Definitely, and it can still kind of give you a great idea of what the conditions are like out there and help you build your mental picture of what's going on. Yeah, same, some low angle stuff. So yeah, we're definitely kind of thinking about that less than 30 degrees. Take it easy below tree line. Yeah, not the north or east faces. I like that a lot. Playing it safe, dig a pit, low angle. Yeah, definitely. These are all really great suggestions. I definitely have the same like gut reaction reading the forecast. I'm not like this is the day to really get sendy or try to get out in a big bowl or something like that. Definitely does not seem like the move. Um, so yeah, now that we've kind of like talked about our mindset some just to get on the same page in terms of like what is avalanche terrain before we jump into making a map. Avalanche terrain is anywhere that an avalanche can start, run, or stop. So I've included a link to a video here that will be sent out in the notes afterwards. That's really great to help kind of conceptualize where avalanche terrain is. But in this photo, you can even see that you probably have some start zones in those upper like big bowls, which seems like kind of your obvious avalanche terrain. But even in some of this closer stuff that has vegetation, maybe that's areas that an avalanche can run into or even stop and bury someone in debris or something like that. So it's kind of important to be aware of like full avalanche path and where avalanches can occur in your terrain. Like we've been talking about already so far, slope angle is really important, and generally slopes steeper than 30 degrees are capable of producing an avalanche. So that's definitely something we'll be looking at in our maps, how to get a good idea of where your steeper terrain and less steep terrain exists. And then another aspect that we've talked about some with above and below tree line is your vegetation clues. So you can see that here, even just in our satellite image, that there's clearly areas that are above tree line and really high alpine where you can see it's just kind of like rock and dirt. And then the denser forest where you're definitely below tree line. And then that near tree line is kind of where you have a little bit of that gradient or the mix of the two. And you can see kind of from where that red X is actually where the photo is taken from in this satellite image. So you can see that the lighting obviously is not great, but there's an avalanche path running up the side of the mountain there. And we're kind of at the edge of it. So there's much larger trees where you're not in the avalanche path, and then we have much shorter trees inside of the avalanche path. So these are clues that we can pick up from our mapping as well, which is really, really great when we can dive into our mapping and just be able to look at these things as well. But yeah, you can see that there's multiple avalanche paths within this photo, some that are kind of running north-south and some that run east-west. So being able to just visually see those from your satellite imagery is really helpful. So with that, we'll start talking more just about maps. And I am kind of a mapping nerd a little bit and can really get into the weeds. So yeah, I'm really excited for this part of it. But there are a ton of different mapping softwares that are out there. I feel like there is a new one like every other week, which can be a little bit overwhelming if you're just getting into things. But you've probably heard of like Caltopo, which we'll be talking about tonight. But there's also Gaia and Onyx Backcountry to just name a couple off the top of my head. People also, I don't know, use Google Earth. People are doing stuff on Strava. There's a ton of different mapping softwares and applications that you can have on your phone. So my advice kind of when you're getting started is to just pick one and learn how to use it, and which layers you really like in it is kind of the most useful place to start. And then once you kind of have a good idea of, you know, what are the layers that you like to use, what are the ones that are really useful when you're in the field, then it makes it a little bit easier to start looking at other softwares as well and comparing them. So if you feel overwhelmed, that's okay. Definitely just pick one and run with it for a little bit and you'll get more comfortable. It's also important to note that there's kind of like the free version of all of these and the paid version, and different softwares put different things behind the paywall. So kind of figuring that out too can be a little bit challenging. And I really like Caltopo because it has most of the features that I really like on the free version. So that being said, there's also really phenomenal guidebooks and paper maps that I think are really useful to have. I have a bunch on my bookshelf. There's statewide guidebooks, so you can buy them for the state of Colorado or the state of Oregon or the state of Washington. But there's also more local guidebooks. So like I think I have one for Rocky Mountain National Park that's like really specific to that area with like photos of different zones and maps that have things as specific as where to park and where your trailheads are and things like that. And also I think worth mentioning is beacon guidebooks and maps are a really phenomenal resource. They have a series that's called like light tours of, so like light tours of, I don't know, maybe Colorado or something like that. And those are kind of really great tours, to kind of start dipping your toe into new areas or things like that. So those are really useful as well. So not to knock all the paper resources as well, before we start getting into doing online mapping. But yeah, from here, I'll have everyone to just go to caltopo.com, and then you'll want to click start mapping once you get there and see their main screen. So I will swap around on the screen sharing again here real quick.
And I did put Caltopo in the chat. It's like three messages up or 4 messages up if people are following along, which I think this is a really great opportunity to follow along, especially because mapping can be very overwhelming.
Yeah, definitely. Here, I'll get back to the home screen of Caltopo so we can all be in the same place. But yeah, if you go to caltopo.com, you're gonna get to somewhere like this, and if you just click on start mapping, you get to start mapping. This is gonna have what I was last looking at, so I'm going to change it real quick. But you should have something that looks like this, and then in our search bar, we're just gonna again search for Berthoud Pass, Colorado. And it should take you to a view that generally looks like this. So I'll give everybody a couple seconds to get to the same place. So once we get here, I think the first thing that's worth noting is your base map or your base layer. And you have a ton of different options for your base map. Right now we have Map Builder Topo as our base map, which is kind of this basic topo map. So we have our contour lines that show us the elevation. It has trails on here, which is kind of nice if you're using this in the summer. But it can be nice for the winter too. Sometimes trails follow a nice grade, but don't ever feel like you have to follow trails when you're out touring in the winter. Um, it also shows us the highway in red, US 40 coming through, and has generally like creeks and peaks and things marked on here, which is definitely nice for getting familiar with the area. But if we hit the drop down here, we can see that we have different options for topo maps. So if you have a different preference, you can change it to something else. This is the USGS scanned topo. It's a little bit more historic type topo map or the Forest Service topo map. I usually just stick with the map builder topo. But yeah, there's a bunch of options in there. There's also, like I was talking about with satellite imagery, aerial imagery in here. So this is really nice for seeing where our tree line is, where above tree line is. We can see things like the road, but it's important to note in the satellite imagery that nothing is really going to be labeled for you, at least the way that Caltopo has it laid out here. So the nice way to do that is you can use the stack base layer feature, which basically lets you combine 2 base layers. So I have my first one, which is my topo base layer, and then I like to do my second one of one of the types of imagery. So I have that in there. And then once you use the slider, it will change the transparency so you can have both at once as to both worlds, which I think can be really useful for kind of seeing both when I'm kind of at this stage of planning. Usually when I'm in the field, I'll just pick one or the other because it makes my map a bit simpler on my phone and is less layers to load and things like that. So that is setting up the base layer. So feel free to play around with that however you would like, whatever you think makes it the easiest to see everything that you want to see. But then the next layer that I usually will add in here is our slope angle shading, which we've already been talking about some in terms of wanting to be skiing in low angle areas or wanting to avoid those areas that are over 30 degrees. So this is Caltopo's like built-in slope angle shading. And if you look at the bottom, it shows you what colors go with which slope angles. So you can see it says that 27 and 29 is yellow, orange is 30 to 31, and so forth until it gets steeper towards like the purple colors. So this is really great to use. It automatically kind of like highlights some areas that we would probably think of avoiding or kind of marking off for ourselves based on the forecast that we had for today. Something that's important to note about the slope angle shading layer is that if we zoom in much closer, we can see that it's like pixelized. So it's based on these grid cells. And each grid cell has a resolution of like 5 to 10 meters. And then the slope angle that it's assigning each grid cell and making into the different colors is kind of based on the average of that area on the ground. So it's kind of a larger area on the ground when you think about it. And this is important because when you're out in the field, your map is dealing with averages, but you might have things on the ground that are steeper. So it's really important to kind of still be aware when you're out touring. And I think that's really important when it comes to planning your route and not trying to really thread a needle because this layer might not be as accurate as you'd like it to be. For example, if you're saying, oh, well, I'm just going to go in between these two areas because that says that it's, less than 27 degrees. And this layer might indicate that, but it might not be as accurate as you'd like it to be. And there might be, features in here that are that steep, and you really are just traveling straight through some avalanche terrain. So that's something to kind of build some margins of error around your steeper areas. And if you find yourself in a scenario where you're like, oh, I could squeeze in between there, maybe reconsider that if that's your reason for traveling through there. So that's our slope angle shading. Another one that I like to look at sometimes is the sun exposure one. I think this takes a second to load. But the sun exposure I think is really nice, especially maybe more in the spring. It can tell you areas that are really facing the sun more, and the snow is going to warm up nicely, and you might get some nice corn skiing. So you can see now those like more yellow orange areas are more south facing essentially, and they're going to get some more sun. And so that's going to affect the snow throughout the day. So this can be a really nice one to look at. And then the blue areas are areas that are more north facing and stay more shaded. And the snow is going to stay probably a bit cooler. So yeah, this is a really nice one to use. It can be nice in the winter too if you are going to have like a really hot day and want to stay somewhere that might be staying a little bit cooler or something like that as well. The next layer in here that is really great to use is the cell coverage one. And this, again, kind of like the slope angle shading, like I would take it with a little bit of grain of salt and not feel like, oh, I'm in like the perfect pixel to have cell coverage, because maybe you'll get there and you won't, and that's not a great thing to rely on. But this is really good to know if you really need to be planning on having other forms of communication, like an inReach or something like that. Or if you are going to have really good cell coverage. So you can use this drop down, pick your carrier. So Verizon has this hole here. So maybe that's not great if you're planning on kind of being in this area for the day. But otherwise, seems like widespread coverage, and it's not going to be an issue for me to like text my friends and meet up at the parking lot with them or something. But you can go through and check the different carriers. T-Mobile's got it covered apparently. AT&T. So that's a really nice one. Just kind of generally be planning. Sorry about that. Um, and then kind of below that, we have this chunk of forecast layers, which are newer to Caltopo, and they're kind of fun to play around with. I still kind of prefer just checking forecasts, but this can be a nice way to maybe see how things are stacking up across the landscape. They kind of take a while to load. The one that I do like more is this wind plot one, shows you the wind directions, which I think is really nice when you're dealing with avalanche problems like wind slabs. It definitely helps me to visualize like, oh, this is gonna be my lee side. And then decide where you're gonna have all your snow depositing and your wind slabs forming. So that would be the lee side. But kind of areas where you're getting more wind scouring or wind deposition. It's really nice to kind of visualize that. And then they also have the avalanche one in here, which is cool. But again, I would 100% recommend going to the Avalanche Center's website and reading the forecast. You can see here it gives you pretty like high level of what we read and does not quite have the same amount of information. And the link here, I think, will take you right to the forecast. So that part is nice that you can get linked to the forecast pretty quickly. Get back to where we were here. Zoom back in. So that is most of these map layers that I use. There, of course, are other ones that you might find useful. So feel free to play around with those at all. But from there, I'm going to go into kind of some of the drawing that we can do in Caltopo, which we'll do on this map object side where there's the add button. So the first thing that might be nice to add is like a marker, which is kind of just a dot. You can make it any kind of shape actually if you click on the style button here. You could pick any sort of shape really that you might find on a map. But I like to make a marker for the parking lot. I think that's a really nice place to know that I can make it back to. So you can name your point. You could add any sort of comments that you might have. And then when you hit OK, it will pop up on the side here. And if you'd like to save your map, you can name it. It knows that I'm logged in right now, so you might have to set up an account to do this. But like I said, this is all free. So it's really nice to save your maps because then you will kind of develop a map catalog, which is what I have at this point, which is really great when I am returning to places and want to remember where I went or what I planned. And you kind of just have like a list of route options then after you've made quite a few of these. But yeah, making a point is kind of first step, nice and easy. Put it on the parking lot there. But yeah, from there, in terms of maybe thinking about where we would tour out of the parking lot here. Turn the slope angle shading back on. Like we talked about, we kind of wanted to avoid those steeper areas. And we wanted to avoid areas that were maybe more northerly facing or east facing. So just kind of based on the forecast, if I wanted to start making a kind of like skim track route, I might click on this line to create a line. And what's nice with the lines is that you can trace any of these topo map base layer lines that are on here. So we can trace this trail. So I might say, oh, from the parking lot, I am going to follow this trail kind of off the north side of the pass, maybe to about where tree line thins out here. Seems like a good spot. And then you can see that my line pops up on this side. You can edit it, so give it a name, maybe call this my skin track. That's great. We can change color. We can do all kinds of things. I'll leave it as red because it's easy to see. And then the nice thing about lines is that you can get a profile from your line. So this tells you how long your line is up here at the top. So the whole thing is a little bit less than half a mile. So that's great to know. We can get our elevation gain as well as these are like the minimum and maximum elevations. So we go up just shy of 400 feet, it looks like, from the parking lot. So that's really important to know as we're planning our trips, like how much effort it's gonna take to get up there. My really quick and dirty rule of thumb that I use for kind of gauging amount of time to travel is about an hour for every mile or about an hour for every 1,000 feet of elevation gain. So based on that, this would be, I don't know, maybe half an hour, and that's probably like a conservative estimate, probably would be a little bit shorter. Um, so that's the nice part about drawing lines in here. Caltopo will also give you time travel estimates. So yeah, their hiking one was kind of similar to what I just threw out there. Um, but obviously you can get a better idea of that too the more time you spend out touring and getting an idea of how long it takes you to travel certain distances or elevations. Um, the one bummer I think about lines is that it's really easy to kind of get some blinders on when you are out in the field and you're just following along your line. Especially if there's already a skin track there, that makes it super easy to just follow in the same track that everybody else has been using and that you put on your map. Um, and that kind of doesn't really lend itself to very active route finding when you're out in the field in terms of, making some observations of the snowpack while you're out in the field or adjusting if you need to. So kind of what I like, I have a couple of strategies for dealing with that. The first
Hey,
one is,
Erin, can I interrupt you real quick?
yeah.
Do you know if it's free to use the map objects? Like,
Um,
is that whole map building part? Because I'm not logged in right now on Caltopo, so I'm not sure why. Like, it's letting me do it, but Jess isn't seeing
oh,
that
interesting. As far as I
on.
know, that functionality is free. You
Yeah.
might have to have an account set up,
Okay.
I wonder. Um, but you can make an account for free.
Okay. Cool.
So
Yeah, and I'm not logged in right now, so Jess, that might be. I'm not sure if it's like hiding in like a not a
it
drop
can,
down, but like.
I think if you hit this arrow, it can be like off to the side. I don't know if that is what's going on.
I'm gonna just try refreshing it. Thanks.
Okay.
That also sometimes fixes it. Um, but yeah, I hope you can draw along with us. Let us know if you're still having issues.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, one of the things that I like to do to kind of like break up just following a line for me on my map is adding what I call a decision point. So I'll just add another marker here and call it a decision point. Sure, decision point one sounds good. Maybe I'll change the color to yellow. And then I can grab it and kind of move it to this point on my skin track where I'm like reaching tree line. So that's kind of like we're entering into kind of a different area. The snow conditions might be different. And this just gives me a really good like visual place on my map to be like, this is a place to take a break. Maybe I need to eat a snack or change my layers. I probably do. And then it also kind of gives you a point to regroup, get your group back together, have a conversation with them, check in with how everybody is feeling, check in about kind of the snow conditions or the weather. Is the weather what we expected it to be? Are the snow conditions what we expected it to be? It could be a good place to dig a pit or make a quicker observation as you're on the skin track here. So that's one way that I kind of like to break up just following along a line, and gives your group a point to kind of talk about what you're seeing and talk about if you need to like change what you're doing. Should we just go back to the car because the wind is like gusting at 50 miles an hour? It's just a really good place to kind of, or an easy way to break things up and not have so much of that like summit fever that can be really easy. Like I've set an objective for the day and I'm gonna get there. It's a nice way to break that up and kind of facilitate some group discussion. And it's a good like visual reminder when you're navigating and looking at your map. So with that, another thing that I kind of like to do other than just putting lines all over my map is drawing polygons instead, which is basically a shape instead of a line. So one polygon that I might draw on here would maybe just be like this whole area that's like really steep and has that purple, which kind of looks like it's like rocky and cliffs out some there, which might be like kind of a train trap. It's also pretty east facing, we can see, which was in our forecast. So I kind of drew that really pretty quickly, but yeah, it popped up here and we can edit and name it and just be like, this is a no-go zone. We could put some comments in if we wanted to. I'm gonna leave it red and just hit OK. So that's a really nice way to like block off areas. So if you read, something in the forecast and you're like, oh, I want to make sure that I'm not going in these types of areas. That's kind of how I like to denote that on my maps. Another way to do it though is like adding a polygon for places you do want to go. So I might add one kind of up from this decision point and be like, this like little rise up here is kind of an area that I want to check out. And my group can make a decision on like where exactly we want to go within there. But I've kind of assessed that area, from the map, and it looks like it's going to be an all right place to check out. Maybe make it blue. So that kind of gives us the beginning of like building a route out for the day, considering the forecast and considering the mindset that we put together. We can maybe, tour up, see what the snow is shaping up to look like, make some observations or dig a pit, and maybe, take a lap or two up and down this little area that's pretty low angle. It's pretty south facing. Um, so yeah, I also really do like to use polygons for kind of my like descent routes. Because usually I'm not just like following a straight line back to the car. So it's really nice to kind of highlight the areas that I want to ski back inside of a polygon instead of just having a line for my return route. That kind of makes it easier for me to visualize like where in the train I should try to like stay when I'm skiing back down to the car. Um, so with that, getting into the last couple of things that I had, this is a really fun one that you can add to your map. It's a little bit more complicated and I don't always do it. But this DEM shading option is really cool. If you click on it, we can name it, maybe like Abbey hazard. So this is the hazards that we saw from the forecast. And basically what you do is you go over to this side where it says add a new rule. And so if I want to add a rule for where the avalanche hazard is, and it's going to be on slopes from 30 degrees to as high as it can go, so like 90 degrees. So anything over 30 degrees. that's one rule from the forecast of where there's an avalanche hazard. So I can click add rule and it will pop it over here in kind of like a code type syntax. So I don't need to mess with that at all. But then if I want to add another rule, I'll uncheck this one and maybe I'll do aspect. So if we look at the forecast again, and we look at this compass rose, our aspects kind of went from northwest all the way to east. So if I hop back into Caltopo here, we can say from northwest to east. All those aspects I want to highlight. So I'll click add rule. And we could add one for elevation too if we wanted. If we wanted to say above tree line's usually like around 11,000 feet to, I don't know, 14,000 feet. Or if you want to do whether or not there's canopy cover, you can do that. But I'll just do these two and click save. And if I turn off some of these other layers, we can see what it did. Basically, it highlighted for us where those things exist in the terrain. So it highlighted all of the areas where our slope is over 30 degrees and where the aspect is either, from northwest to east facing that they pointed out in the forecast. So this is like kind of did a lot of work for us, which is really awesome. I like doing this kind of for zones that I'm not as familiar with, and it's harder for me to like visualize like which way the slope is facing or something like that. It kind of auto does it for you. But yeah, this is kind of another really cool tool that's built into Caltopo. I would put the same caution on it that I did with the slope angle shading. Like this is all based on kind of some math behind the scenes and isn't like exact. So if you're like trying to weed your way through like the edge of something like this, maybe that's not worthwhile. But generally, it's a really nice way to see where those terrain features are when you're planning your trip.
Hey,
So
Erin, there was a
yeah,
question, and I just want to make sure it gets answered in case anyone does have to leave right at it's 7 my time, but 6 for some people. But just it's a good question.
yeah,
They were asking how to get the map onto your phone. Specifically, this person saying from a PC. I don't know if you're on a Mac or a PC. If you need to download it for offline use while skinning, or how do you view it on your phone once you've
right.
like built this map out?
Yeah, that is a really great question. I am on a PC. So the way that you would do that, I think you definitely need to say like have an account and save your map. So yeah, right here where it says unsaved map, like if you haven't been saving it the whole time, I think you can, maybe not. I may have needed to click like save earlier. Oh, actually the save button. There we go. The one that's in green right in front of me. You'd like choose a name and save it to your account that you've set up. And then from there, I like have the Caltopo app on my phone and I'm like logged into my account on the app. So if you have the app, you don't need to do any sort of like uploading or downloading or this like import export. You can simply like open the app on your phone and see all the maps that you've created in there. I'm pretty sure in like one of the menus up at the top, you should be able to get to all of your maps. Let me know if you're playing around on your phone to whoever asked this question and you don't see that, and I can give you some more specifics. But in terms of like what the import and export does over here, the import allows you to like import like GPS file if you had a track you wanted to import. And the export, you can, pick how to export it to, you could open it in Google Earth or something like that too, if you wanted to export all these features and do that. The other thing that is nice to do with it is, let me see if I can do it this way. What's the quick way to see the link to it? I think I might have to save it. So now that I have saved it, I think you can go here, sharing. Yeah, you can also change the sharing on here. So, if you want to like send it to your friend, you can click view with URL. And then as long as you send them the URL, they'll be able to open it and see it as well. So yeah, I guess let me know if that answers your question. But, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, great. I
Okay.
think that I'll keep an eye, but I think that explains that, and I think part of it is like needing to play around a little bit on there for people.
Yeah, definitely. You can like open it in a browser on your phone, but I think that's like much harder to use on your phone than like downloading whatever app goes with whatever mapping software you're using. Is definitely much easier, and then kind of like playing around with the functionality within the app. And then yeah, there should be options within the app too once you're in there to go ahead and like download it for offline use as well. So yeah, that's kind of that whole part of it. But yeah, that is kind of like towards the end of my demo here. The last thing that I just really recommend is making sure that you kind of have like an emergency route to get back to your car in the event of any sort of emergency, whether that's an avalanche or someone gets hurt or something like that, and just kind of being aware that as soon as you're out of the parking lot, or even the parking lot for some backcountry zones is like a really remote place to be and you're far from help. So like for this map that we built today, we weren't really building an aggressive skin track way out into somewhere. And I would say the skin track probably would be my emergency route back to the car. And I definitely wouldn't be like exposing myself to avalanche terrain to get back to the car just because it's shorter or something like that. But that's also a really important consideration. And I would build like another route for my emergency route if it wasn't going to be the way that I got where I was going. So yeah, with that, that is pretty much the end of my talk. Besides making maps, like make sure you're making observations in the field and adjusting where you need to adjust when you see those red flag hazards. And yeah, continue to build your education throughout the season. Check out VNTR Birds. They have a ton of amazing courses as well as like free meetups. So check them out. Yeah, with that, I'll leave it for any questions if there are any more.
Yeah, if anyone has questions, pop them in the chat. Oh, yay, thank you. Yeah. Erin, that was awesome. Thank you so much. Anyone feel free to put questions while I'm just blabbing. But that was so helpful. I didn't even realize I've been using Caltopo and underutilizing it for years. That was
Well, they
great. Thank
honestly
you.
keep making new features in it all the time. So if you follow them on Instagram, they will have like
Oh,
reels of new features all the time. So that's a really
oh,
great way to stay in the loop with
great, great
Caltopo
tip.
features. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone so much for coming. Last chance to put your email into the chat so that we can give you some goodies for both TREW and Coalition Snow. And if you already put it in there, then I can get it from the chat. But if you haven't, go ahead and do it now. And I don't think we have any more questions. Just everyone saying how great, Erin, you were. And that was really awesome. And as a reminder, this is going to be posted into the clubhouse so you can rewatch it along with a follow-up document basically that has a lot of what Erin covered and the links and pictures and things like that. So you can always refer back to it. And then we just got one small question here. Has anyone used an exported Caltopo map and put it into Gaia?
I have done that. It's been a while. I think the best way to do it, if I'm remembering right, I think if you like print your map from Caltopo as a geospatial PDF, you can upload that into Gaia, I believe. Otherwise, some of those other export options might work as well.
May work. And someone said they've exported Caltopo onto Onyx. Not sure which one it is. But someone has done that and it worked well. So that's a good tip. Cool. Well, yeah, well, I'll have to mess around a little bit more on Caltopo and on Gaia. I also have Gaia too. So seeing how that may work together. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Erin. You're
Yeah,
awesome.
of course. Thanks so much for having me.
And thank you, Jess, as always, and TREW Gear and Venture Birds. We're all doing what we can in the outdoors to make the space a little bit bigger. So I love that. And you all are a part of that for being here. And so I really, really appreciate it. And I will see everybody in the clubhouse. If you ever have any questions or want to reach out, that's where you can find me. So thank you all so much for coming.
Thanks. Thanks, Erin. Thanks, Evan. See ya.
Okay. It's always funny waiting for everyone to leave and then you have to start like making them leave.
Right. You're like, who's just left this on and walked away?
I know. Yeah, exactly. Or they're like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah.
That was so good. Thank you so much. You did
Thank you so
awesome.
much for having me. This was really fun.
You did great. Yeah, good. I think that was like probably one of the most like interactive and like helpful ones, because sometimes the chat is just like no one's putting anything in there, and it's kind of hard if you're like talking but no one's like asking questions or following along. So you did great. So Jess was gonna send you a code, and I'm gonna I can just give you the one for coalition right now, because I think I told Jess that I was sending it after the event. So she's probably doing the same. Let me find it. Oh goodness, where is it? Sorry, I have a million tabs open. Okay, so it is Erin, all caps, BB, and it's good for 30% off for a one-time code.
Okay. Does it have like expiration date?
I don't think so. And if I'll double check with Jen, but I don't think it should.
Okay.
Yeah. So and then I think that TREW is going to be the same deal.
Okay.
So she'll send you that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad this worked out, and I hope that it was fun for you and worth your time, because I think that a lot of people got something out of it. So I really appreciate the time you put into it as well, because that was very well organized, and we have had some in the past that's just like really hard to follow along or get have something concrete. So thank you.
Of course.
Really appreciate it. And it's
hard sometimes to know like where to start. Like very basics or jump in the deep end. So hopefully it was a good balance for everyone.
Yeah. Oh, I think it was, and at least like anyone can go on to the Caltopo and like, play with that. And like,
Yeah,
it's just meant for people to be able to dip their toes in a more accessible way. So yeah.
definitely.
Cool. Well, I was gonna say I hope to see you at some point in life, but
Yeah, definitely.
I'm
Are
on
you
the
in
other side of
Silverton? Is that
Colorado.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yep.
That seems
So
like
I make
a
it.
good mountain place to be.
Yes, we desperately need some snow, which I know lots of places do, but it is like
It's
I've been
dry.
running because I can't snowboard. Yeah.
Well, hopefully it's coming.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope for Front Range area as well that it does. And I hope you have a good season. If you need anything, let me know. I don't know what you would need, but reach out.
Sounds
Yeah.
good. Thank you so
Cool.
much.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye.